The introduction of the idea of change in any organization is a great challenge to every manager. In order to encourage employees to accept the new changes in the work field, the manager has to lead them smoothly to be part of the decision-making process through several techniques. Let's see some of these techniques. Adapting to change or resisting. Adapting to change means getting used to change, and resisting change is rejecting or refusing it. The dilemma of the employees whether to adapt to change or resisting it is part and parcel of the employee's job. Getting any organization to change is a slow process, but it's the initial stage when the change is first announced that is by far the most important. The word initial in the second line means the first stage, and the word announced means introduced. So the introduction of change, the way the employer introduces or announces change, is very important, and that would either make the whole project succeeds or fail. That's when the people in any organization start thinking about how the change will affect them personally. Affect means disturb. They weigh up the pros and cons and ask questions about its usefulness. Weigh up, balance the pros, advantages, and cons, disadvantages, and ask themselves questions about its usefulness. So, number one, introduction of change is very important. The way change is introduced is very important. Number two, when change is introduced to employees, what is the first reaction? The first reaction is that they are going to look at the pros and cons, the advantages and disadvantages, and try to make balance and try to think about the advantages and disadvantages in order to form their decisions. Reactions will range from enthusiastic support to apathy to rejection. Range from means differ. From support to apathy. Apathy means indifference. Okay, indifference. They don't care. Or rejection, refusal. So, what is the reaction of employees? It's one of three things. Number one, total agreement. Number two, indifference. They don't care. They don't have a special or a clear point of view. And number three, rejection, refusal. The people affected by the change will typically fall into the following three groups. The supporters, people who are with the decision, and the people who are indifferent, and people who are against the decision. Let's first see the supporters. If they can see the advantages of the change, your supporters will try to persuade their colleagues to accept it. Persuade means convince. Okay? Of course, accept means agree. They will take the active part in the process and will do their best to understand the new procedures. Active part, the positive role. The new procedures. Procedures are, of course, measures or actions. And adapt to new programs. Adapt, we said, accept or be get used to. So the supporters are very important for the manager, because on the introduction of the idea of change, people who support the change will help the manager convince other people who do not agree to it, or maybe do not see the positive parts concerning it. Moving on to the second type of employees. We said number one, the supporters who support the idea of change and who are going to be a great support to the company. Number two, the ambivalent. The ambivalent means people who are indecisive, who are not sure, who can't form an idea or accept anything by their own. Maybe they would need help, maybe they would need direction. They can see that the proposals have good and bad points, but they may be nervous about the idea of change and feel anxious about changes to their current situation. As I told you, the proposal means suggestions. Okay, so these ambivalent people know that the suggestions have good and bad points. They may be nervous about the idea, they are not sure about it, and they feel anxious. Anxious is another word for worried about changes to their current situation. Current situation means the status quo, or it means the present situation. They may oppose some of the ideas. Oppose means refuse. But given enough pressure, they'll eventually accept the changes as necessary. So these ambivalent people oppose some of the ideas. They reject some of the ideas. But if the management or maybe their colleagues give them enough pressure means force them, they will eventually, they will at the end accept the changes as necessary. So the word eventually means at the end. They won't be antagonistic, but they won't be committed either. Antagonistic means aggressive, or it's another word for maybe someone who opposes aggressively, but they won't be committed. Committed means devoted, or it means with the decision 100% either. So these people are not supporters, and they are not people who refuse the idea. They are ambivalent. They don't know how to take a decision. So you will need to lead them through the exercise, which they prefer not to do. So the manager has to lead these people, these ambivalent employees, into accepting it. Accepting change, I mean. How would they accept change? Maybe by stressing the advantages, okay, and offering solutions to the disadvantages. Moving on to the opponents. We said again that the introduction of change is the most important part in the change process. When you introduce the change, the manager will face three kinds of employees. Supporters, and we said these supporters are the most important part of employees that will help and lead the manager to solve the problems. They would convince the rest of the people or convince their colleagues convince them to accept change. Number two, the ambivalent people who are indecisive, who cannot take the decision on their own. And again, this is the responsibility of the manager to lead them to take decision. Moving on now to the opponents, people who will always refuse change. These are going to be your biggest problem. They will be difficult, rebellious. Rebellious means unmanageable, okay, and unwilling. Unwilling again, unenthusiastic, and will try hard to resist change. Resist means stop change, reject it. If they do eventually agree to it, they will still feel resentful and will be constantly watching for the slightest mistake. Resentful means they will reject it. They will be angry and will be continuously watching for the slightest mistake, the smallest mistake. If they can't sabotage the new ways of working, sabotage means damage, they may react by becoming apathetic and doing as little work as possible. Apathetic means indifferent. Okay, and doing as little work as possible means they will not be cooperative. So these people who are opponents, they are present in every work field. They will be a very big problem for the manager. Okay, they will be difficult, rebellious. If the manager introduces any change, they resist it, they do not accept it. And not only that, they will try to sabotage it. Okay, they will try to make it fail. And even if they don't sabotage it, they will be indifferent to the work, they will do little work, and they will not be cooperative. Clearly, it's an advantage to have opponents in any organization, and the challenge is to create real enthusiasm and commitment and get enough people on board. On board means people who are with the decision and supportive, in support of the change. The key thing means the important thing, is to involve staff at the very beginning in the problem solution phase. As we previously mentioned, the most important phase in the introduction of change is the initial stage. Okay, involve people, make them take the decision, make them have their own decisions. If you do so, they are much more likely to be positive and enthusiastic about the solution. When they feel that they are part of the solution and that they took the solution, they will accept it and will be very much cooperative. Okay, moving on now to the questions. Match the words in bold in the article to these definitions. Okay, when you disagree with something, okay, and try to stop it from happening, okay, respond to something by showing feelings or taking action, cause a change in someone or something, agree to do something that's been suggested, refuse to accept or comply with, agree, means agree. Become used to a different environment or new ways of doing things. So guys, can you think of words in the text that mean the same as these sentences? Try to get them out of the text. Here is the solution to the previous exercise. Moving on to a very important question that's frequently asked in exams, the phrasal verbs. What's a phrasal verb? A phrasal verb is a verb plus a preposition. When the preposition is added to the verb's meaning changes. For example, the word verb run. We all know the meaning of the verb run. When we add the preposition out of to the verb run, it becomes run out of, meaning finished. So the preposition's addition to the verb changes it into a phrasal verb and changes the meaning. Let's see some phrasal verbs and their meanings. Try out means practice. Try out their language skills means practice the language skills. Put on, arrange. Put on lots of courses, arrange lots of courses. Take on, accept. Take on more work means accept more work. Work out means have a successful result. It worked out very well, يعني it succeeded. They brought the policy in. Bring in means introduce. We run into means encounter or meet. Deal with means handle. Drop out of means leave. Drop out of courses means leave the courses or do not be part of them anymore. Okay, moving on to another important exercise. These words, okay, describe uncertainty, hostility, enthusiasm. Okay, let's go quickly and revise the meanings. Resistant, person who stops or rejects. Worried, someone who's anxious. Nervous, okay, we all know the meaning of nervous. Committed, someone who is committed to something, means he is serious about it. Ambivalent, indecisive. Anxious, worried. Hostile, someone who is antagonistic towards something. In favor of, with something. Critical, someone who always sees the negative points of something. Resentful, someone who rejects. Enthusiastic, he is with it wholeheartedly. Keen on, someone who is very careful and wants to do the thing. Positive, active, okay, and optimistic, someone who's always seeing the good sides. Okay, now prepositions that come with several words. Some words take special prepositions. They come always with them. So we say antagonistic to, receptive to, resistant to, committed to, ambivalent to, hostile to. So guys, this is a very important exercise. You have to learn and study very well these words and the prepositions they come with. Okay, antagonistic, let us go again over the meanings. Antagonistic, someone who is against, okay, against a decision or against something. You say antagonistic to. Receptive to means you receive it, you can receive it. Resistant, you reject it. Committed, someone who is committed means someone who is with it. Ambivalent, committed means devoted to something. Ambivalent, someone who is indecisive. Hostile is an enemy to. So all these words come with the preposition to. Okay, the preposition of. In favor of means with. Critical of, they criticize, means they highlight the negative points. Resentful means reject. Okay, the preposition about. What words come with the preposition about? Concerned about, worried about, nervous about, anxious about, and anxious again means worried, enthusiastic about, positive about, apprehensive about, apprehensive means can understand it, optimistic sees the positive points in the certain decision. And lastly, the word keen on. The preposition on comes with the word keen. Keen on. We say keen on means someone who takes much effort to be on the same track with something. Okay, he is devoted and does a lot of effort to do something well. Thank you.